Hey everyone, it's me, Michael, with Recreate Church, a community of life and love. We're still meeting virtually right now, and I'm out here not far from my house on a patch of land that my family's been farming for a long time. Not too long ago, I heard a news story about farmers who were dumping milk and produce and plowing under fields, and that didn't make any sense to me at all. Farming runs deep in my veins. I grew up on a farm. The Shockleys have pretty much all been farmers since they got to the New World 370 years ago. And I was kind of trying to break that streak of being a farmer by being a preacher, but I recently got some chickens and I might have messed up. Whoops. This much I know. Farming is hard work, and the last thing a farmer wants to do is to dump all of his or her hard work down the drain. So what's the deal? There was good produce ready. There were certainly people who needed the food. So what went wrong? Turns out the problem was not in the production or in the need, but in the capacity. The pandemic has so disrupted the supply chain that there was no logistical way to get the food from the farmers to the people. The capacity problem meant the good things, the blessings, could not get from the producer to the people. And that really got me thinking, God is kind of like that farmer. He's always growing good things for us, and he wants to get them to us. And we certainly need those blessings. But sometimes it feels like the blessings don't quite get to us. And why is that? Doesn't God want to bless us? I'm sure he does. I'm convinced that he wants to get good things to us, like that farmer. He desires to bless us even more than we desire to be blessed. The problem is not with God's ability to bless, but rather with our blessability. When it comes to being blessable, it is character that creates capacity. People are impressed with talent, with fame, with resources, with what you can do. But God is impressed by character. He's looking for people with character who can be trusted with all the good things he wants to give them. So what is character? Character is who you are on the inside, your true moral and mental state. Now, we live in a world where most people present a carefully crafted and curated image. We live in the Instagram world. We rarely see who people really are. We almost always see what they want us to see. Character's kind of the opposite. Character is who you are when nobody is looking. Character is the ethics of who you really are on the inside. Now, looking back over my life, I've noticed a pattern. I'm convinced there were times when God wanted to give me more and take me farther, but it didn't happen. I know God wanted to, but it didn't happen. What's up with that? Did God run out of power? Did he suddenly stop loving me? No. God's ability and desire to bless is unlimited. But the capacity of my character to handle blessings, well, that does have a limit. And the cap on our capacity for blessings is our character. Listen to this. A blessing that a person does not have the capacity to receive is not really a blessing. Now, I have this awesome little nephew named Lucas. Hey, Luke, if you're watching with Mom and Dad, I want to say, hey, buddy, shout out to Luke. You're the man. Can't wait to see you again. He is so adorable. So let's just say I want to be Luke's favorite uncle. What can I do? Maybe I could buy him a truck. Now, don't take this too literally. This is a sermon illustration. I can't even buy me a truck right now. Can't buy you a truck, Luke. But let's just say I wanted to be his favorite uncle, so I want to buy him a truck. That would be a blessing, right? And if I was going to buy a truck, I would get a massive dually pickup, man, a manly, studly truck. And I know his daddy would love to drive it. But here's the problem. Lucas is only about 1.5 years old. He's not even 2 yet. At this point, he doesn't have the capacity to handle a blessing that big. He can't do a great big truck. He couldn't see over the steering wheel. He couldn't reach the pedals. And if I hand him the keys to a big old pickup truck, am I really blessing him? Man, he's so little. If I toss him the keys, he's going to eat the keys. He can't handle such a big blessing right now. But he can handle other blessings. He can handle something on a kind of a scale that he can do right now. Something not like a big dually pickup, but more like a toy truck. He has the capacity for a toy truck, and he would probably enjoy that immensely. But as for a big full-size pickup, he's just not ready for that yet. It's a blessing that's bigger than his capacity to appreciate right now. Now, with Lucas, what needs to grow is his body and his maturity level. He's just a tiny little guy. But when he grows, he can be trusted with fuller, bigger blessings. And hey, man, if I'm in the capacity to do it, I'd love to buy you a truck someday. So keep this as evidence that I did make the offer. Okay, buddy? I got you. Love you, man. But for you and me, what needs to grow is our character. I'm telling you, there may be some blessings the Lord would like to give us, but if he tossed us the keys right now, it would be a disaster. A blessing that we do not have the capacity of character to receive would not be a blessing. The world of sports is full of examples. Young athletes who are blessed with incredible talent can do amazing things on the field of play, but they don't have the character to sustain success. Now, they have the ability to play at the professional level, but they don't have the character to sustain a career at that level with the fame and the money and the prestige that comes with being a pro athlete, and they just sort of crash and burn, and we call them busts in sports terminology. So here's the very heart of the series, the whole message series. Here is the secret to being blessable. If you want to be blessed by God to the fullest extent possible, if you don't want him to ever have to hold back any good thing from you, then the best thing you could do is grow in character. Character creates capacity for blessings. That's the secret of being blessable. Now, does that mean I'm promising you that if you'll just grow in character, then God is going to bless you with money and fame and fortune or an easy life? No, I can't promise that. Does this mean if we do the right things, if we grow in character, our blessings are a compensation for a life of character? No. If we have to earn or deserve every good thing that God sends our way, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. But this much I can tell you with certainty. The more blessable you are, the more God is able to bless. If you have the character to receive blessings, he's got a lot more incentive to send them your way. One of the best teachers on character in history was an interesting guy named James. He was the very first pastor of the very first church. His teaching style was really blunt and powerful and forceful. He kind of had this gift for stating these little nuggets of truth that just hit you like a spiritual sucker punch. Now, James might be one of the most compelling evidences we have that Jesus really is who he says he is. You see, James was the half-brother of Jesus. Now, I bet some of you grew up with siblings who liked to think they had some authority over you. So, how convinced would you have to be to believe that one of your siblings really lived up to the claim of being divine? Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, and his brother believed him. He must have been pretty darn convinced, don't you think? After the resurrection, James became a believer, and he held fast to his faith in Jesus, even though it didn't gain him anything, even though it cost him his very life. He held fast to the end. James was not only the very first pastor of the very first congregation, he's almost certainly the very first person to write down part of what would become the New Testament. We find the letter of James kind of near the end of the New Testament in order of the books, but it was probably the very first of the New Testament writings. James wrote this letter just not much more than a decade after the resurrection, so the events are pretty fresh here. Now, the first chapter of James is chock full of incredible teaching about character. If you like practical, down-to-earth, gut-level teaching, you're going to love James. And we want to spend some time going through James chapter 1, talking about how character creates capacity. That's the secret of being blessable. Now, I know I've spent a lot of time setting up the whole series, but I really do want to tackle one of the character traits today. First thing James is going to talk about is endurance. We really need that character trait right now. James chapter 1, verses 2, 3, and 4, we're going to read this. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If I can sum up the heart of what I want to tell you today in one spiritual nugget, kind of like James would, it would be this. The struggle bus is headed somewhere. Maybe you've never heard that phrase before, struggle bus. That's a kind of a way that some people say they've been in a period, a season of life where it all seems to be struggle. So they're riding the struggle bus. I'm outdoors, you hear the wind blowing. Man, it's kind of nice that it's not raining today. So maybe you know what it's like to go through a season of life where it's nothing but struggle. You're riding that struggle bus. We're kind of all in that right now. The state where Recreate Church is based has been on lockdown for about 2 months now. And some places a lot longer than that. Right now we're all riding the struggle bus. Maybe some of you would say that you were on the struggle bus before Corona came along and gave you a ticket. You were already on the struggle bus. Can I get a witness? One of the most valuable character traits that we can have right now is endurance. So let's see what James says about it. He starts out by telling us, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Now, didn't I tell you James was blunt? Count it all joy? Come on, man. That sounds crazy. We're supposed to consider it joy when we're struggling. Now, the word here for count is pretty interesting. It means to take leadership over something, to take the lead on something. James is telling us to take leadership over our situation. Now, I know this is true. We cannot always choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our attitude. That's the one thing you can always choose. Now, I know what you're going to say. Hey, come on, Michael. I want to say the same thing. You say, if I have a bad attitude, it's because my circumstances are bad. And if the situation would get better, so would my attitude. I totally get that. It's not easy to have a good attitude in the middle of a mess like that. See, that's why James is specifically telling us to count it all joy. You have to take the lead on your own life. You have to be intentional. You have to choose the narrative. You can't always choose everything that happens in your story, but you can choose the story you tell yourself. Instead of seeing ourselves as the victims of an unfair world, we choose to recognize the positives that come from struggle. You see, remember that core idea. The struggle bus is headed somewhere. God does some of the best work in our lives through seasons of struggle. It's only through having to endure something that we grow the character trait of endurance. You don't get endurance without having to endure. Struggle creates endurance, and endurance creates character, and character creates capacity. So get this, every struggle you endure, if you do it through the power of God, has the capacity to increase your ability to be blessed by God. It can increase your capacity. So what? Are we supposed to go through life? When we face a season of struggle, we're supposed to shout, "Huzzah, for I am blessed. Blessed hardship has fallen upon me. How wonderful to receive this blessed opportunity to develop the character trait of endurance." Come on, man. Probably we're not going to be able to do that. But be sure of this. If you don't learn endurance, you're going to have a hard time. I love sports. Man, I love sports. It's been so long since I've played any ball or done any cardio that I'm sure if I was to play any today, my endurance, my cardiovascular endurance would be terrible today. And that's a problem in sports, because when you're running low on endurance, when you're worn out, you stop giving your best effort. You don't hustle like you should, and you start to get sloppy in the way you play the game. And that is exactly what happens in our lives. Life has a way of wearing us down. Seasons of struggle come our way. And if we don't tap into a source of strength that's greater than us, we'll eventually run out of endurance. We're starting to hit that wall. We're no longer giving our best. We start to get sloppy, and you know what I'm talking about. You ever had a job that wore you down? I don't necessarily mean physically, but I mean it just kind of left you feeling just frustrated, bored, stuck in a rut, like, why am I still doing this job? And pretty soon, you start to let things slip. The quality of your work goes down, and your attitude starts to go down the tubes. Hey, can I tell you something you don't want to hear? I'm warning you. Please, can I tell you something that you don't want to hear, that you might get mad at me for? Hey, don't turn this off after you hear this, but you need to hear it, because I need to hear it. If you feel like your job stinks, you need to be aware that your attitude might stink worse. Don't turn it off just yet. Hear me out. If you wish you had a better job, don't slack off at the job you have. Give it all you've got. Give it all you've got and see if God doesn't send something better your way. Why would God give you a better job when you're not giving your best at the job you have now? Learning endurance might be your path to promotion. So if you're in school and you have some classes you really aren't enjoying and you're just you kind of feel stuck and your endurance starts to run low, you're going to start turning in work that's below your ability. You might just stop showing up to class if you're a college student, and of course your grades are going to suffer. Man, give it your best. You need that endurance. When an important relationship in your life goes through a rough patch, there's a real temptation to stop trying as much as you used to. To stop giving the other person your best, whether that's a spouse or a significant other or a family member or just someone who is important in your life. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, hey, man, well, why should I give my best to somebody who doesn't appreciate me or doesn't give their best to me? Now, that's a fair question. I want to challenge you on this. Try this. If you consistently give your absolute best to that relationship, you might be surprised at how things can change for the better. I can't guarantee you anything, but most of the time when we say we've tried our best in a relationship, we haven't really. That's just facts. In preparing to talk to you guys, I've learned a lot about, myself, things I didn't understand. Looking back over my life in light of what I was learning, I'm starting to see that so many of the choices that I've regretted the most were made in a season where my endurance had been worn down. It's like when my endurance runs low, so do my brain cells, and I start doing the stupid things. Instead of stopping and realizing, say, whoa, okay, life has worn me down. I need to take some time. I need to get refreshed. I need to get along with God and get my head on straight. I need to practice a little self-care. What did I do? I just keep pushing straight on, pushing ahead, not taking time, and I start doing dumb things, making dumb decisions, making mistakes. Push myself right into, places I don't want to be. I kind of look over my life and, I've tried to be honest with you guys about wrestling with depression. Almost every season of depression has kind of come out of a season where my endurance was low and I didn't stop to do self-care and just kept plowing right into depression and then really do some dumb things. It's really only been recently that I'm kind of learning these things. It's a character issue, It's more than just what appears to the eye. It's a character issue. And I think it has limited God's ability to bless me as much as He wanted to bless me, maybe more than anything else in my entire life. Now, this current crisis, it's testing our endurance, isn't it? Getting pretty worn out with it. No matter your opinion on everything, lots of varying opinions, even among God's people. We can all agree with this, man. It's going to be nice when this season, this ride on the struggle bus comes to an end and we can get off. We have to be so careful that we don't let ourselves get worn down and start getting sloppy in our work, in our relationships. We start making dumb decisions in the important parts of our lives. So James tells us to take leadership over the narrative and choose to see the joy that can come from struggle. Let's pick up on verse 3. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. The same crisis that drains our endurance has the potential to grow our endurance. James implies something kind of interesting here. Did you pick up on it? He implies that until we've ridden the struggle bus for a while, we're lacking something. We're incomplete. He said it's when we have struggled and learned endurance that we're perfect and complete. We're mature. What does it mean? Well, it means this. We don't learn endurance without struggle. You don't learn to endure without having something you have to endure. We don't learn character without endurance, and character creates capacity. Character is the secret to being blessable. Now, if you feel like you've been riding on the struggle bus, hear me now. Hear me now, because I need to hear it too, and you need to remind me. The struggle bus is headed somewhere. If you call upon Jesus now to grow your endurance through this season of struggle, the struggle bus is going to drop you off in a place where you are more blessable than you were before. We're in this rare period of history where we're all on the same struggle bus. People all over the world are on the same struggle bus. You know, I recently found out we had people tuning in to these messages from as far away as Hong Kong. That's amazing to me. If you're listening from Hong Kong or Kenya or anywhere outside of the United States, I'd really love to hear from you. I'd love to hear if these messages are making a difference to you. How about you shoot me an email to recreate.worldwide@gmail.com, recreate.worldwide@gmail.com. Even if you live in the States, I'd love to hear from you what these messages mean to you, because there is some good news in the midst of all of this. If we're all on the same struggle bus, then we can all be an encouragement to one another. We can help each other along as we learn the character trait of endurance. And we can come out on the other side with more character and thus a greater capacity to receive blessings. See, hear me now. Character creates capacity. That's the secret of being blessable. Man, there's so many blessings God wants to give His people, but it may be that we have to grow to the next level in character before we can handle it. So right now, we're on that struggle bus. Life on earth is uniquely challenging in this season. But I want you to know the struggle bus is headed somewhere. And will you help me get this message out? I bet you know some people riding the struggle bus. Maybe it's you, and maybe it's me. Do this right now for the people you care about who maybe need some encouragement, who've been on that struggle bus. Get out your device, send them a message, text them, message them, whatever you do, snap them, and tell them this: the struggle bus is headed somewhere. Now, when you send them that message, the struggle bus is headed somewhere, they're going to be like, what? What are you talking about? And then tell them about what you've learned in this message, that struggle creates endurance, and endurance creates character, and character increases our capacity to be blessed by God. You see, the struggle bus is headed somewhere. If we'll ride that bus faithfully, trusting in the Lord, it's going to drop us off at a place where we can handle more blessings. So I hope you'll tune in for these messages each week. We're going to be for a while, probably a couple more weeks meeting virtually. We are hoping to meet back up for in-person meetings on June the 7th. And we hope to continue recording these messages to get them out to you folks who found us. If you're all able, join us when we reopen. Now, we're going to have to do some creative things, so check our website out for that as time gets a little closer. We want to make it work. Love you guys. I want you to know above all things that God loves you and we love you. And as we tell you all the time, no matter your story, you are welcome, you are wanted, and you are loved by God and by Recreate Church. See ya.